Welcome to Education 206. And this is our final critical component, which is, I'm sorry, right here. It is addressing misbehavior constructively. So, for this final critical component of effective classroom leadership, we're going to focus on addressing student misbehavior in constructive, respectful, and educational ways. We'll look at practical strategies across grade levels and emphasize the importance of maintaining a safe and supportive learning environment. So let's take a moment to review the objectives. You'll learn how to respond to behavior in ways that support student growth rather than simply punishing missteps. You'll also finalize your note catcher to document insights from all 5 critical components. So, we want to explain the importance of constructive behavior management, identify effective strategies for addressing misbehavior, begin outlining a classroom management plan, and then reflect and submit on your full note catcher. So all 5 of them need to be completed and submitted in this module. How we handle misbehavior directly affects student learning and emotional well-being. Students learn more when they feel respected and when teachers respond to mistakes as learning moments, not just a violation of rules. So, addressing misbehavior constructively matters because it promotes emotional safety and trust. It builds a climate of accountability and support, and it teaches lifelong social emotional skills. Students, regardless of their ages, will need help regulating their emotions, channeling their emotions appropriately, and of course, understanding the norms of participating in a collective and collaborative society as citizens, as contributors to that society. So it's very important. Constructive discipline is about teaching, not punishing. Instead of focusing on what not to do, we model, reinforce, and guide students toward what they should do. This mindset builds stronger relationships and a more positive classroom culture. We really lean into growth mindset when we focus on what they should do and what they can do. So, guiding students to understand and improve their behavior is critical to addressing misbehavior constructively. Focusing on positive, respectful, solution oriented strategies is key. And replacing punitive measures with supportive instruction and resources as necessary is very important. So, for example, depending on the situation, what you can provide in the classroom may not be quite enough. So you may need to lean into an assistant administrator or a counselor in order to help find the appropriate resources and strategies to support all learners. So let's look at some elementary strategies. At the elementary level, it's essential to reinforce good behavior immediately and specifically. Kids thrive on routine, as we've mentioned before, and positive attention. And modeling is a powerful tool for helping them see exactly what's expected. So, behavior specific praise is outstanding, especially for the littles. Name the behavior you want repeated, especially when you see some of your students. Manifesting that behavior, exhibiting that behavior. You're going to especially see this in your field placements in the elementary classrooms. You'll see a teacher say, "Oh, Molly, I love that were ready to take notes as soon as I got to the front of the room. Thank you for fulfilling that expectation. And buddy, you'll see the rest of them getting their pencils out, and, you know, so naming it and attaching it to a specific student is very important. PBIS rewards is something that you're going to see in a variety of ways in different classrooms and school settings. Sometimes they're digital, so you'll see like Class Dojo, they'll get class points, or it might be physical incentives like golden tickets, or maybe they're, keeping track of frogs was one of the things that once they had 10 leaps as a class, they were going to get a class reward. And so those sorts of things are really fun. And then modeling expected behavior is very important. So showing students how to meet the expectations. This is especially important not just for generalized behavior, but also for academic behavior. So for example, I was recently in an elementary classroom. It was their first time to use real rulers. And so the teacher actually had to model for them. This is how you use it. And she said, we don't want to use it this way. And she was tapping on the desk, and we don't want to use it this way, and she hit one of the stuffed animals in the class and said, we could hurt our neighbors. And so she was modeling for them how to use this new tool. Through the middle school lens, we can see that there are also some strategies that help manage the boundary testing that middle schoolers often exemplify. Of course, you'll see it in elementary as well, but it really manifests in middle schoolers. By teaching social skills explicitly and rewarding progress, you help them take responsibility for their behavior. Quick, interactive cues also help redirect attention without escalating tension. And also, we never want to use shame as a motivator. That's going to shut a student down. So waiting, talking one-on-one, waiting until the class is on track, and then perhaps pulling them to the side and going over, reinforcing and going over some of the expectations. That's much more effective than yelling from the front of the class. So modeling conflict resolution is very important. Role playing can be really fantastic for middle schoolers. I've seen some middle school teachers begin this in a homeroom setting, like when students are in the 6th grade, and it's really effective. They have little scripts and they actually role play, and it's very, very effective. Positive reinforcement systems, again, they love the points, privileges, class incentives. Those sorts of things are also very effective for middle schoolers. And then attention signals. So it can be very fun, but we want to make sure that they're consistent, whatever it is. I've seen all sorts of different systems in middle school classrooms to gain attention. The call and response is typically something that's done in elementary, but I have also seen it be effective in middle school as well. So just be paying attention as you go into settings, how misbehavior is addressed in the middle school setting. High school students need structure, but they also want to feel respected. If they know you care, they're more likely to respond to redirection. That's where those behavior, the relationship building comes into play. Role modeling adult behavior and maintaining open dialogue helps build mutual accountability. So, transparent consequences. Set and discuss clear expectations. Make it open with everyone. When you find that there is a student who's really not meeting those expectations, address it quickly. Don't let it go on. Don't let it continue. Build in structures that help them maintain accountability as well. So it's very important. Every grade level, it's very important, but let them have grade trackers so that they're keeping up with, wow, I've missed 2 assignments already. Those sorts of things are important so that they understand how important it is not just to participate in class, but to actually get work done so that they can see the success and the productivity that comes with learning. Building relationships, as we mentioned, getting to know the students, fostering that respect is important. And then modeling adult conflict resolution, show how to listen, de-escalate, and compromise when necessary. We talked earlier about doing a periodic check-ins with the whole class, to see if some of the expectations need to be modified. Those are ways that you can actually begin to build those relationships with the students. I'll give you an example. I taught in a really large high school, and we had some schedule changes, and the students only had 3.5 minutes to change classes. To be honest with you, it was really a very unrealistic expectation. Students who were, midway through the school were just, they were going to have trouble making it to my classroom that was on the far end of the school, much less students who were on the total opposite side of the school. So we had to talk about what was an expected time. And I knew that some of them were going to be as much as 2 minutes late. And we felt, we agreed, and we actually walked it out one day. We were learning something else, but we walked it out. Um, we began to build in some opportunities where I kind of switched around my lessons so that some of the more independent tasks happened earlier. We just began to talk out some of the needs that they had. That's not always possible, and it's not always the case for misbehavior, but high school students do respect when they feel like you are attempting to work with them, work with their needs, and get to know them. When we shift from punishment to guidance, we still maintain accountability, but we do it in a way that preserves dignity and builds trust. Students are more likely to respond positively and learn from their mistakes. So we want to kind of check out some of the punitive approaches and contrast them with some of these more constructive approaches. Go to the office versus let's talk about what happened after class. A punitive approach would be a silent lunch for talking. A constructive approach would be to restate the expectations and use logical consequences. Sometimes a silent lunch is necessary, and that can actually be an approach that is effective. However, that can't be the first thing that we do. We've got to have logical consequences. We've got to restate what the expectations are, and build in some scaffolding systems to support the behavior improvement. And then, as I mentioned before, public scolding, that just creates shame and humiliation. It's much better to have private conversations and allow for a time of reflection, perhaps even a reflective activity. So instead of doing like the silent lunch, ask them to come in maybe a little bit before school and write a reflection piece. If there is a timing during the day where their schedule allows them, maybe to come to your class and work on a reflection piece. It's more constructive. Also, one of the things that we haven't discussed yet is we want to make sure that we're including all stakeholders in helping address misbehavior constructively. So don't let things get out of hand before you call home to the guardians, to the caregivers and the parents. It's important to understand the whole scenario, and it's important to include them, make them part of the team in helping correct misbehavior. Now take a moment to reflect on how you'll approach misbehavior in your classroom. What mindset will you bring? What strategies will you lean on to stay calm, fair, and focused on helping students grow? As we wrap up this module, be sure your note catcher reflects what you've learned, not only today, but throughout all 5 components. Remember, you have 5 different note catchers that are going to have to be submitted in Module 10. This will serve as a helpful reference as you begin building your management plan. So in this particular class, you're only observing. Later on, you'll have a full classroom management class. where you can really dive deep into some of these concepts, but we're laying the foundation in this introductory education course. Have a great week.